Hey there, welcome to another episode of Tidbits from the Road, coming to you from 71 South in some really freaking dreary conditions. But on the upside, it is January 22nd today, and instead of this being snow, it's rain. And that's part of what I'm going to come and talk to you about today, and that's the range study that I've been doing here for the Model S. And it's not done, it's by no means done. Because I've only really just gotten my first piece of data without having the heat on. But I think it is a harbinger of what we're going to find out from the finished study when I get there. For those that haven't been paying attention to me or didn't know, I've been running a range study because I noticed, like many people, when you get an electric car, that the range in the winter, well, there's no way around it. It sucks. But the reason it sucks is not inherently that it's cold, rather more that the car needs to keep the buckets of flesh inside of it warm. Not necessarily that the car needs to be warm itself, although there's a component to that we'll get to. So I wanted to see exactly what that was, because on other podcasts, on Reddit, on just articles I've seen and comments and things, the question always seems to be, well, what exactly is that range penalty? And kind of the de facto answer that I've seen from most people is, oh, you can expect 25% to be the range penalty in the winter for using heat. I felt in my own personal dealings that was a little bit light on what that was. And so I set out a while back to figure out exactly what that range penalty is. And right now, again, like I said, I only have one piece of corresponding evidence without using it, and that came from today without using the heater. And the other caveat to that is the temperature is so warm that I'm not going to be able to account in that piece of data for what the car will need to do to heat itself, because the battery pack does need to be at a certain temperature in order for it to operate properly. And those of you that are veteran Tesla owners will know you'll get that wonderful little dashed yellow line on your regen telling you that you're not getting any regen because the battery's too cold. So with those things in mind, let me take you through what I ended up getting as the initial results. And I don't think these results are going to be too far off what the actual results are, but I kind of wanted to throw this out there as something for people to see. The major issue with trying to do this thus far is I really am trying to control for all the possible variables that you can have that might affect such a study. And so one of the things that I'm doing, number one, autopilot as much as possible. So you can see right now I'm just kind of down here with my hands at the ready. I'm kind of gesturing occasionally, but got my hands at the ready for autopilot. Autopilot as much as possible. And that reasoning is that makes the car drive infinitely more consistently than I ever could drive on my own. Next up, always driving the speed limit, because this is one of the other things that people don't realize when you buy an electric car, when you get the range that you've been given for what the car is supposed to achieve, is that, hey, if you speed, you're not going to come even close, anywhere near the range estimate that you're getting. And I've seen that a lot. Me personally, I actually, again, with no heat on, I generally do better than what the rated range is for the car. This usually, it's gone down since I've owned it. I charge about 239 miles a day at 90% charge. But back when, before the cold came, I was doing very, very well. Usually to the tune of, I could probably get about somewhere between 250 and 260 miles out of one single charge to the 90% level. So that's pretty darn good. So that's two things. speed limit and autopilot. Third thing is always the same route and always the same direction, because these are big deals. So the route is a consistent one. It's my commute to work, and that commute is a significant distance. So there's no, I've had some ways that I could really, really baby this car, and I attained over the course of about 2 miles something like a 140 watt-hour per mile efficiency, which is just stupidly good. But obviously that's not something you can attain over a long drive. So given that I've got a 71-mile commute, and there's obviously the majority of it's interstate, but obviously there's a fair bit of, not interstate driving in there. I think it's a very good representative sample of getting different types of driving in and a long enough commute that there's no real way that you could say, well, because you took this route, that's why you're getting the answers that you're getting. And moreover, because I'm testing the same route with and without the different heating methods, then you can't, when you're comparing the same thing to the same thing, you can't have a possibility where there could be something that is tainting the results. So that's the third thing that I'm definitely going through. So without further ado, let's get to the comparison between no heat, which I got to do today at all, versus the average of what I've been finding over the course of the winter. One other thing that I will say is that it's been hard for a couple of reasons getting my heater results as well, between either A, forgetting to actually make the recording of my data, because there's several points of data that I record, and if I miss recording any of those points of data, I have to throw out the data set because it's not consistent, right? And B, the temperature this winter in Ohio has varied wildly, and that has affected as you'll see when I put out the final study, the range that I'm seeing based on that. When I was traveling up and it was single-digit Fahrenheit weather, it was a significantly different efficiency versus cold weather, but a little more normal weather for this time in Ohio, something like, in the 20s or in the 30s. So being able, I really can't compare the measurements that I took that are in the single digits versus the measurements that are taken in the 20s or the 30s. So that's something that when I do put out the final study that I am going to throw out there. I have a feeling that this study is going to have to go through another winter before I really totally finish it in order to be as accurate as it can possibly be. But I want to get some numbers out there so that way current owners and future owners know, hey, here's what you can expect if you get, say, like this, a Model S 85D, what you can truly expect if you have an actual winter climate. Obviously, those of you in the southern states or in more tropical locales outside of the United States, you're not as concerned about this video, but I hope you can enjoy what I'm throwing out there. So anyway, I've tried a few times to get to it. Let's get to the actual data. So here's the actual numbers, and again, I'm trying to give you sort of an initial look at this without claiming any statistical significance just yet. Just what I have experienced in driving the speed limit, throwing autopilot on for drive consistency, and the same route. And here's what I got. So, like I said, we've had some severe differences in weather. So I'm going to give you the best efficiency I've had with the heat on, and this is the standard cabin heat. And the reason I wanted to do this first, I do want to, if you're unaware, some Tesla owners will forego the cabin heat but turn on the seat warmers as the way of trying to heat themselves. I do want to study that, but I haven't got that far yet. So with cabin heat on at 70 degrees, also another key, and the variables you can throw into this. This is what I got for the worst and best efficiencies using cabin heat alone over the course of a 71-mile commute. And what we've got is I took 23.1 kilowatt hours of energy and at a efficiency of 324 watt hours per mile. That is the best I was able to do with cabin heat on at 70 degrees. The worst I saw, and this might have been a 4 or a 5 degree day average, the worst that I saw, again over the same commute, following the speed limit at all possible times, and using always following the speed limit and using autopilot at all possible times. The kilowatt energy used was 27.2 kilowatt hours, and just an abysmal efficiency of 383 watt hours per mile, give or take. I'm dropping the tenths off the watt hours per mile. Comparatively, this morning, and again, a very balmy day for January 22nd in Ohio, we had about a 50 degree day, but again, I don't believe the battery heat on this is going to be affected as much, affecting the range nearly as much. But again, something that I do want to test. Especially since another thing to know about my study is that I do precondition my car before leaving the garage in the morning. And right now, I do have the data for my return trip from work, but right now, the data that I'm giving you is only for my outbound trip to work. Again, trying to control for all the possible variables here, because it is a significantly different drive out versus back as far as elevation changes go. So my no heat on ratings, we've got only 19 kilowatt hours used at a efficiency of 268 watt hours per mile, which that's a pretty darn good efficiency. And mind you, that's also on wet tarmac, because as you see, it's been raining out here, and it's been raining all day. And wet tarmac will also affect your efficiency on the car. So again, that's another variable I'm trying to control for, and why it's been so hard to try and get good numbers for this study. But as you can tell, let me do some quick math off the top of my head. With 268 being my benchmark, and the best of that, of the cold weather with heat on ratings that I got was 324. A little quick math, and we've got, what do we got there? 40, almost 60, that's 56. So that's 56 watt hours per mile difference versus the non-heat version. And 56 watt hours per mile, again, a little quick math, into that 268 that I had, it's a little better, again, mathing off the top of my head, a little better than a 20% range hit that you're taking. What's that remainder there? Let's see, 56. That's 52, got 4. So roughly a 22% range hit that you're taking there. Now on the uber cold side, I mean, that's staggering. So that's 383 versus 268. It's a 115 kilowatt hour watt hour per mile difference. And by my math, what do we got? That's 20. Call it 27 per 27 into 114. We got 4. We'll just call it 40%. Just trying to math off the top of my head there. So it's a 40% range hit in that super, super cold weather. And folks, that's not insignificant. To give some perspective on that, again, I've got a 71-mile one-way commute. Now, I am fortunate enough that there is a supercharger en route between myself and my place of work. If I, say, had a 70D rather, or a 75D, let's say, let's go with the most current car, rather than an 85D there, this all of a sudden, you're charging to 90% on a given day. 200 miles-ish of range is not gonna maybe be enough when you're taking a 40% range penalty for turning the heat on. So my total round trip would be 142 miles, and then if we're gonna eat 40% of my range because of heat, that's gonna knock out 80 miles of my range. That's 120 miles of range that I'm legitimately left with, and I am not getting home if there's no supercharger or any type of charging between here and my place of work. Now, thankfully, I do have an 85D, and this isn't a problem, especially because I can do some things to make the car, extend the car's range. But I want to make it very clear, because we got a lot of people out there that are having to make a decision on a Model 3 here, and like many people, this is the most expensive non-home purchase you're ever going to make in your entire life. And if you buy the standard battery thinking I'm good, and you're in I am admittedly an edge case here for my giant commute, but if you're also in that edge case and you live in a cold weather climate, you might make a huge purchase and end up very disappointed in that purchase. I really think that Tesla is not doing, and EV evangelists in general really, are not doing a good enough job at letting people know just how badly cold weather affects the range on an EV. Because let's face it, obviously, I am a huge EV evangelist and a huge EV enthusiast, and the fact that you're watching this, you probably are too. But the average Joe that wants to buy the Ford Focus in front of me does not care that they're driving an EV and, it's better for the environment. They might care that they're going to get, better fuel savings and whatnot. But if you tell them, like I've seen many Tesla enthusiasts say, just don't turn on the heat, you'll be fine. Turn on the butt warmer, or wear some extra coats, or bring an electric blanket in the car, or something like that. Folks, that's living in an echo chamber. That is not a tenable answer for the average person that wants to drive a car the way they're used to driving a car. And we can't ignore that fact. So I'll get some more data on this and some better numbers because again, like I said, I know that what I just gave you today, the 19 kilowatt hours and the 268 watt hours per mile, is not a fair comparison. It's a close comparison. I bet you this might differ by 5 to 10% in the efficiency. Once I get a better comparison against the true temperature. And believe me, I am going to freeze my butt off for you folks out there, because I am going to have to do exactly what people are telling folks to do. Put on an extra coat, use an electric blanket, all this extra stuff just to be able to drive your car. But I suffer, your gain, the community's gain, and I believe this is a topic that really needs to get out there, that people need to know about. So anyhow, that's it for this episode of Tidbits from the Road. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do enjoy it, please be sure to subscribe to the channel so you can get not only the video versions, but you can pick up the flagship show, the normal Tesla Tidbits show, and just always have it come in automatically for you. And if you are in it for just the video, I do have a playlist that only puts the video out. So if you only want to see the videos, you can go and check out the playlist that I've got there that just gives you the video instead of the standard show as well. That's only audio with a static graphic. Please do subscribe if you enjoy it. I'm not sure if all of you out there are aware or saw my video or whatever on the changes that YouTube is making. So subscribers are very important to us smaller channels now. Please do don't be stingy with that subscribe button out there, okay, folks? Other ways you can support the show, I got to give a shout out to my Patreon channel out there. You can see it at patreon.com/Tesla Tidbits. And I got to, as always, give the shout out to the super patrons that are supporting the show at the $10 plus level. You'll see them get their credit on the card at the end of the show here, and that has been growing, and I very, very much appreciate it. So that wraps everything up for this episode of Tidbits from the Road. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was informative. And until next time, keep it charged and hit the road.